Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get to the JRC here in a moment. First, the disclaimers and the trigger warnings. If you're not familiar with the Stop the Shock campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links will be there in the description box. We have Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject. We have the article written by Neuroclastic, the same one where they surveyed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center's so-called behavior modification program. The exact same one that, in spite of all JRC's posturing and constant never-ending appeals to authority, felt so threatened by, they threatened the defamation lawsuit towards Neuroclastic, threatening to sue them into the Stone Age if they didn't remove that article from their website. Curious, isn't it? What was that you said, JRC? Any reasonable person would agree with you? You know it's bad when even ABA professionals are looking at you in just sheer disgust. Just saying, that's a special level of low. Folks, please read the article, share it on all your social media. We also have Neuroclastic's GoFundMe linked in there as well, because unlike the JRC, we do not have access to unlimited funding. Alright folks, trigger warnings. When we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, please utilize at least some headphones. Also, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity, and we definitely speak on some dark subjects. If your child's 16 and younger and watching this, parental supervision is very much advised. Also, the weather that has been threatening for like the last 3 to 4 days is here, which means I'm going to be hit by real random allergies out of nowhere. And I'm tech illiterate when it comes to this particular type of software and wouldn't know how to edit it to save my soul. Give me Adobe Photoshop, I will give you a magazine cover of your dreams. Doing this sort of thing and formatting it is a little bit beyond my capabilities. So, if you hear me clearing my throat or having to stop and go get the door because somebody's dropping medicine off, any of that, I do apologize for in advance, alright? Okay, to comment 5, and also a warning. The JRC has a bad habit of not just lying, but repeating the same lies over and over without even acknowledging the fact that the first time they put out their accusations, that those accusations have already been countered. So they just bulldoze and do it again. So just be prepared. Alright? These are very disgusting, character assassinating, victim blaming, sadistic, masochistic assholes. Just keep that in mind. I try to, but they still trigger me. Nothing quite gets my goat more than willful, hostile stupidity. So we're moving on to comment 5. Again, I would like to apologize on the behalf of pretty much every sane human being on planet Earth to the poor FDA panel that is going to have to review this 55-page thing when all you all asked for is a comment, just like you did when you did the original proposed ban in 2014 and opened it up. But FDA, you can't say that we didn't warn you, because we very much did. But anyways, Let's get started. More than likely, we're going to probably do a singular or a couple sentence one again because they're loading and they're stupid again now. Alright, the FDA is required by statute to make its decisions based on all available data and information. Are we just going to keep repeating ourselves into infinity? And let me guess, you're going to counter that with, but they didn't because they didn't agree with us. They didn't view our evidence and didn't give it the same weight as the other side's evidence. Because your evidence isn't relevant. The few objective papers you pulled up is literally several decades old. Medicine and understanding, not just in the field of developmental disabilities, but also in the fields of mental health and psychology in particular, and how certain consequences can affect the human being psychologically, was not the sort of things they had to consider back in the day. Who wants to bet we're going to pull the same crap again? I'll throw $5 in. Maybe a cookie, I don't know. Let's continue, shall we? The FDA acknowledges that the proposed ban concerns only one facility in the country, JRC, and a very small subpopulation of patients suffering from severe SIB and AB. JRC, did you ever think that part of that suffering, the reason why we attack ourselves, subconsciously or consciously, is because of the self-hate and self-loathing for who we are as neurodivergent human beings that we get drilled into our head starting at the age of 3 might possibly have something to do with that. You ever think about that? Does anybody ever think about that? When everybody's trying to get you to play act and brainwash you and condition you into a pattern of behaviors that are completely and utterly alien to you. And the reason why is they essentially saying everything you do, the way you do it is wrong. And you don't think there's going to be some psychological identity issues going on and getting older? How about the giant chips of resentment that most of the neurodivergents of my era carry around with us at all goddamn times? Just saying, does anybody ever think about that? Does anybody ever think about the psychological toll on a human being who has been in treatment their whole entire goddamn lives? And throughout the entirety of the time within that treatment, unless you get lucky like myself and find people who are competent and up on their game, who essentially are telling you your whole life that how you exist is wrong. Don't you think that would cause some psychological issues? Some self-loathing? The need to kind of attack yourself? A lot of times, preemptively before somebody else can do it? I like to put it this way. I had severe SIV and AB as a child. As I've gone through therapy, considering mine came both from the fact that I am neurodivergent and due to said abusive childhood, had right along with it extreme anxiety disorder, clinical depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, had a whole lot to do with that. I was put into intensive therapy So those parts of myself have been come down to a baseline. Don't get me wrong, they're still there. I will probably struggle on some level with internal self-loathing, probably until the day I die. But thankfully, it just crops up every now and again. Overall, I can't say I'm really happy with myself either, but I'm okay with where I am at in life, and I'm certainly came way further than I ever possibly imagined for me to be able to get to when I was finishing up high school. But anyways, we're going into left field here. So they do this small subpopulation, and we're the only school that does this. JRC. And you don't see the red flags all over this? But we're the only ones who treat these refractory subpopulations. No, you're not. No, you're not. Stop trying to make that math work. It will never work. It never makes sense. Okay? Even when you're talking very small subpopulations within the spectrum here. Even if we're talking about like about around 1% or even 0.5% for fuck's sake. They're still going to be all over the world. Some out in rural areas, some out in cities. You're still going to have the presence of them here and there. Okay? They don't just like disappear off the map. We're not talking about the Middle Ages when we were lucky, would shove us into institutions. I say lucky because otherwise a lot of them would walk our baby asses out in the forest and leave us for animals to devour and consider that a mercy. Just say, you know, you're not the only ones who provide, quote unquote, treatment for those who are more resistant to different forms of treatment. I can very much say that I had a few consumers that I worked with, that I helped the parents with, who were having some of the exact same, yes, extreme behavioral issues, and getting them into a more individualized and customized type of program. What that usually looked like was a combination of some person-centered planning with positive behavioral reinforcement, PT and OT. Now, you may see couple bits here and there from ABA and some previous older different treatment programs, and even some new inventiveness in tweaking the plans that we have now until we get it right. But yes, JRC, if you do things right the first time, if you don't leave something as absolutely massively important as the full functional behavioral assessment while you're doing it, resistant to the programs or not, eventually things are going to start working for you. And guess what, JRC? None of these, even when done right, start working immediately. Not only have I worked in this field, I've been a part of the service system. Okay? You really think that that stuff just started automatically snapping and everything came into place for me? Then, if you think that's how it worked, I'm gonna need you to put the crack pipe down. Because, nah. Not even close. It wasn't really until I started getting around in groups, hanging out with my own fellow neurodivergents, that any real and massive progress finally started to get made when it comes to me, folks. So, yeah, JRC, subpopulation, 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 subpopulation. For the love of God, it's not an excuse to continue to torture people. Stop putting it in every other sentence. You are annoying. And this is coming from someone who hyperfixates on a regular basis and likes to eat the same things repeatedly for months, sometimes years on end. If I'm the one telling you this, reconsider all your major life choices, for the love of God. Sorry. God. Alright, we're going to read the second sentence here. JRC and the parents have repeatedly invited the FDA to inspect the JRC, observe ESD treatment, and review the voluminous treatment records for the individual patients, demonstrating the treatment's efficacy for these individuals. Okay, first off, JRC. We invited them over repeatedly to come inspect the grounds. Was that after or before you ran from the FDA constantly like they had the goddamn plague every time they tried to reach out to you in regards to testing your most modern iterations of the GED device? Because we have very detailed, documented evidence that you did just that with every single iteration of the GED device after 1991. After 1991, when you began developing the rest of your different torture devices, you were reached out to multiple times by the FDA for you to present your devices for proper testing and licensure, which means all your current iterations of that device are not properly licensed. Any state that was sane would automatically force you to turn them over just out of basic local law. Okay? But no, the JRC, for reasons that continue to elude me, somehow seem to manage to be able to continue to get away with murder over and over and over again, and nobody does a goddamn thing about it but us. I'm not bitter. Spare me. Alright? Number 2. Voluminous treatment records. Voluminous. Mountains. Great large amounts of evidence. Why is it all the main gaslighters, liars, and abusers always use grandiose terms in regards to their fake-ass evidence that doesn't actually exist? Have you ever noticed that? Have you? Because I've heard it a lot. Like, mainstream media news, Blake Lively has tons of evidence. AH had mountains of evidence. The JRC has voluminous, unlimited treatment records that prove beyond a shadow of the doubt that this is revolutionary, and every last one of them never produces jack shit. I mean, Is all this evidence in the room with us? Do you all have it, like, buried in some old catacomb deep underneath the earth? Is it, like, maybe in the Edinburgh Underground? Is that where you all keep all of this evidence that you continue to proceed to not ever produce? And when you're lying like that, why do you have to use that type of terminology? From a psychological level, I am curious in that regard as to why all these grandiose verbiages are always used in regards to fake evidence and fake records that these people never actually produce. Here's my next point in regards to the JRC. We have seen your paperwork, your behavioral contracts, the papers you mark every time you force a child to experience so much electricity shooting through their bodies that literally 3 times more powerful than a police taser. Okay? What does it say in this paperwork? Is this voluminous treatment records that we have gone through with a fine-tooth comb on this channel? Does it actually provide what they're trying to make you think it does in here? Absolutely not. It provides the exact opposite. You literally checkmark near one of the vague-ass reasons that you can wordsmith to make it say whatever the hell you want it to say as an excuse to continue to torture people. Would you like me to go through it all with you again, JRC? Okay. Well, you remember that little bit of where you have to hit a check mark? Well, it says here in the contract, and now it's part of the paperwork, if they stand up for 3 seconds. Well, Tiffany, that could be them being aggressive. Or it could be, I've got a wedgie, and I gotta pick my underwear out of the crack of my ass, because I am autistic. I have hypersensory issues, and not doing anything and let it to fester there would mean that it would completely remove my ability to be able to pay attention to my fucking schoolwork or my lessons. And of course, if we do what you want, because the sensory issues that distracted me to that point, then you would shock them for that too. Is that what you call efficacy and success? That's what I thought. We've seen your paperwork. Never at any point in time has your paperwork ever said what you say it says. Never at any point in time has it ever proven what you say it does. And every single time, it looks like it was a work cobbled up that I've seen 3rd graders come up with better shit. Okay? Your paperwork, your so-called evidence, is a goddamn joke. The reasons that are shockable are so vague that it's not just the FDA and us advocates that you are trying to convince everyone is just after for the JRC for no reason other than, I don't know, shits and grins, completely just throwing away almost 2 decades of my life. My 20s to begin with, nonetheless, because what reason? That's what I thought. Your paperwork is just bad. Horrible. Your clinical studies are even worse. And yet, you continue to try after all of that. And everyone, including the FDA, explaining to you why this is unacceptable as evidence, you plug your ears and scream like a toddler. Stomp your foot. No, you're wrong. You're just after us. You're just after us. And this is allowed to continue. Alright, we're going to do one more sentence before we go to the next bit, folks. Alright, here. The FDA has steadfastly refused to evaluate this small group of individuals, review their treatment records, or inspect JRC, all while claiming that no matter what evidence the JRC or the JRC parents submit, there is not adequate evidence establishing the treatment is effective. And they are correct, JRC. But it stops the behaviors. That means it's effective, right, Tiffany? No. Because it doesn't stop the behaviors forever doing one single shot. You'll have to continue to keep hurting these kids over and over and over again every single time they do something such as stand up for longer than 3 seconds, to get up and go hug someone, to talk out of turn, something kids, neurotypical, neurodivergent, all around the world do every single day. Okay? I'm tired. I'm tired of people getting away with treating us as less than human beings. There are animals with better rights than what we have here. I don't know how else to put it, folks. First of all, but you didn't evaluate the small group of individuals, see their treatment records, inspect the JRC, like you didn't talk to us, and it's effective. It is. It is. Look, you see, it stops them. Uh-huh. How long does it stop them, JRC? And when you remove the device, about how long is it before those behaviors start resurfacing? So what does this mean? That means, if we run by your logic, these poor kids need to be on that device and continue to be physically hurt over and over and over again until the day they die, because your insistence that nothing else works and that that's going to give them quality of life. And you wonder why people look at you, why I can look at you. I see monsters. You wonder why places like the FDA, like the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, call you what you are. If you have to continue to inflict violence on a human being in order to force them to perform in the way that you want, The word for that is not successful treatment or better quality of life. It's abuse. It's torture. That's point blank. That's period. FDA understands that. The UN Special Rapporteurs on Torture understand that. The Disability Rights Council understands that. Why can't you? Why can't you? Continued abuse so that you can get the behavior you want out of a human being. It's not a life I would want to stick around for. But then they'll become suicidal. Yeah, anyone fucking would be. Forced to live that way? Oh, hell yeah, I would be. And so would you, JRC. So would you. Also, you do realize that the FDA has in their hands separate reports, in particular, the unannounced visits from that wonderful group from the New York State Department of Education. That group I've told you about, that I've been a part of quite a few times. The group that comes from these regional offices that should be termed when things go wrong. When one has received so many reports detailing horrific forms of abuse and neglect, that an investigation is required. And when it's required, you don't call ahead so you can take the propaganda tour. You come in unannounced and unguided to see what it is the facility doesn't want you to see. You see, the FDA had no need to do that, JRC, because it had already been done. They trusted the New York State Department of Education. They respected your own whistleblowers. They respected what they could clearly see from your own goddamn records in regards to the fact that once the device is removed, the behaviors come back. Which means, guess what? Not the benefit you try to sell, is it? Autistic Hoya's massive archive that we have in the description box is all the multiple records from multiple decades, going all the way back to when the JRC was still the Behavioral Research Institute out of California, and the detailed reports in regards to the horrific abuse that took place there as to why Dr. Israel was banned from California, banned from Rhode Island before he landed in Canton, Massachusetts. So, JRC, we can dodge the FDA when the FDA is doing their job and trying to get a hold of you so that your devices can be properly tested, vetted, just like every other medical device. Well, then you can't be found. Oh, but when it comes to that subgroup you want to continue to torture forevers, well then, why won't the FDA come on the propaganda tour? Talk to the Kool-Aid drinkers. Yeah. That's what I thought. On that note, folks, we're going to go ahead and close out for this one. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do get tend to get removed from time to time. So if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to utilize the comments. I do appreciate your time, and as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I'll see you all again here in a few minutes. Bye, everyone.